In OSCE, Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe, during a summit in Istanbul in 1999, the political declaration was signed by the presidents and the prime ministers, which said security is indivisible, and the OSCE participants are all committed to equal and indivisible security. Then they stated that each country is free to choose alliances, but in doing so, no country can strive to strengthen its security at the expense of the security of others. And then another principle was signed by the presidents and the prime ministers, according to which no country and no organization in the OSCE region can pretend to dominate militarily. If you read it again, it's clear that NATO violated all these commitments. By the way, so no delivery on the oral commitments, no delivery on written commitments, no delivery on legally binding commitments. And all this was accompanied by NATO instructors beefing up Ukrainian army, Ukraine getting more and more weapons. As Zelensky said, we needed the Minsk agreements to buy some time to get more and more weapons to Ukraine. So we defended our security, we defended the people, the Russian people, who had been denied by Poroshenko and Zelensky, denied the right to use the Russian language in education, in media, in culture, in everything. And when the people who did not accept the coup in the east of Ukraine and in Crimea said, guys, leave us alone, we are not going to follow your policies, they were declared terrorists. And it is the regime who started the war against these people. We've been interested during these years what is going on in Iraq, what is going on in Afghanistan. Have you been asking the United States and NATO whether they are now Scholz, Baerbock, Macron and others say this is the first time when the OSCE Helsinki Final Act is being violated. They don't remember about 1999 when Serbia was bombed, when Iraq was ruined as a state, after Colin Powell showed a vial with some powder, and then a few years later Tony Blair said, yes, it was a mistake, what to do?
No, but that is a lesson which needs to be learned.
Wait a second. If you believe that the United States has the right to declare a threat to its national interest any place on earth, like they did in Yugoslavia, in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria, 10,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean, and they have the right to do so, and you don't ask them any questions. And Russia, not just overnight, like they did in Iraq and elsewhere, but for more than 10 years, warning them, guys, you are doing something which is going to be very bad.
But I think the question has been asked.
One second. Not across the ocean, but just on our borders, on the territories where the Russians lived for centuries and centuries and centuries. So, if it is not a double standard, then I am not a minister. No? Can you imagine that for example, in Ireland, they cancel the English language, or in Belgium they cancel French, or in Switzerland they cancel German? Can you? Or, of course not. But nobody lifted a finger, not the small one, not the middle one, when the Russian language was totally cancelled in Ukraine. We have been knocking on all these doors. OSCE, Council of Europe, guys, why don't you say something? Why don't you tell them to behave? And during all these 8 years, I don't recall that your conference was addressing this problem. Countries of the region are affected not by what we are doing in Ukraine. They are affected by the reaction of the West to what we are doing in Ukraine after we had warned them for decades, you know, that they should stop this expansion of NATO and pushing arms into Ukraine to prepare them for the war against us. I just participated yesterday in the G20 ministerial, and our Western friends were shouting in the microphones, Russia must, Russia must, Russia must, and all the developing delegates, they were also saying, you know, we want to stop the war when Russia is ready to negotiate. If you are really interested in politics and in the root causes of this particular situation, then you would know that Biden, Blinken, Stoltenberg, Borrell repeatedly stated that Russia must be defeated on the battlefield. Russia must suffer strategic defeat. And this, they say, is existential for the West in the context of global domination. It's a very blunt admittance, I would say. The entire G20 was only about what to do with Ukraine and the final declaration, can we have it or not. I asked the Indian friends and Indonesian friends who were cheering the G20 and those who were cheering G20 before Indonesia for all these long years, whether G20 ever reflected in those declarations situation in Iraq, in Libya, in Afghanistan, or in Yugoslavia, because G20 was formed in 1999 at the level of ministers of finance and central bank directors. And nobody was giving a damn about anything except finances and macroeconomic policies. These days, when it is not something which the West is doing, believing this, that it's right, when Russia has, after many years of warnings, started to defend itself, there is nothing except Ukraine which is of interest for G20. It's a shame. It's a shame, and this policy would fail. If they say this is existential for them, it is existential for us. I am trying to explain to you that it is not black and white, that the sufferings of others are not related to what we are doing in Ukraine to defend ourselves at all. These sufferings are related to the sanctions, to the policy of blackmail, the policy of diktat, which the West is promoting. They travel all over the globe and tell the countries to behave. Join sanctions, vote the way we tell you, and so on and so forth. If they are such big Democrats, they should respect the right of other countries to take their own positions. Putin explained in great detail before we started this operation why we are doing this, why we didn't have any other choice. The West condemned. Treat others as grown-ups, as mature people. Don't tell them what position to take. The developing world basically was silent until the West started blackmailing them, threatening them, sanctioning those who would not sanction Russia. You know what? Many friends of mine in the developing world, they're telling me how this is being done. When the West says, the Americans tell them, you must vote this way, and they say, okay, I will vote the way you want me, because I believe this can be explained by the United Nations Charter and so on and so forth, but what do I get in return? And the answer from the Americans is, you would not be punished. Fair deal, very fair deal. Then I have quite a number of friends in New York, and when I was there for the last General Assembly, I talked to them, and they were many if not most of them, were saying that they fully understand what is going on, and that we should not be angry at the way they vote. And they told me what arguments the Americans have been using when they persuaded people to vote in the General Assembly against Russia. The arguments are very straight. Don't forget that you have a bank account in such and such bank, and don't forget that your kids go to Stanford. Bluntly. And I'm sure that there are many people in this room who know that this is true.